God is a manc. At the dawn of time, before it all began, before the stars, the comets, before the bee of the bang, before moisture, ether, bone and tooth, before Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the truth, before creation, civilization, before it all began, God was putting his final pieces to his master plan, and dredging deep down, getting all he could muster, he contemplated the enormous task of building Manchester. Location, culture, industry, it's humans. He was paving the pathway, he was forming the future. He concluded that Manchester would be in the most awesome of tasks. So he rested for a week, and like the wedding of Canaan, he saved the best till last. So his blood, sweat and tears gave him the idea to keep the city moist for the majority of the year. America, Russia, Australia, Finland. Now, he decided the most appropriate place was in the heart of the northwest of England. 30 miles from any ocean, at the foot of the Pennines, location sussed. 9:15. When it came to culture, God left Manchester to itself. Through natural progression, the city would define its own literary and artistic wealth. And that music, dance, film and art would flow like blood through every man and woman's heart. And that working hard was of most importance, but so's a game of footy on a Saturday morning. So by 10 o'clock, the quandary was solved. It allowed Manchester culture to slowly evolve. Divine grace granted us a cultural gift in the form of a riff and in the form of a quiff. By digging deep and by working hard, we were granted Stephen Patrick Morrissey and Johnny Martin Marr. When it came to industry, the rain was very important. To generate industry by simply using water. The reservoirs, rivers, canals and streams would fuel the way to our industrial dream, and the things that rise, like the sun, his son, the soul. So we ensured that beneath our feet lay thick black seam after seam of coal. So in our backyard and falling from the sky was the most natural energy solution, inspiring the most influential and industrial revolution. Factories, mills and mines made Manc the chimney of the world, providing employment for miles around for every man, woman, boy and girl. Human wrongs and human rights that other cities could only follow. But what happens in Manc today happens in the rest of the world tomorrow. Exhilarated, exhausted but jubilant, God knew he was on to a winner. He created the very fabric of the city, so he decided to take an early dinner. And with hindsight, he'd reserved the afternoon for the most difficult of tasks bar none. He'd be working late and maybe overtime, crafting the Manchester man. After pie, chips and gravy and a nice cold Diet Coke, he contemplated and ahed the complex but peculiar bloke. He focused on the working class because the upper class, he just didn't have time. Because if you turn your back on them, they'll blag you. When you turn back, they'll be stood there with a smile. He made the Manchester man honest, cunning, fierce and brave. Honourable, trusting, chivalrous, loyal and humble in so many ways. He made the Manchester man handsome, rugged, thoughtful, artistically defined. A touch of rebel without a cause, who's in touch and aware of his feminine side. He made a Manchester man articulate, loving, romantic and enchanting. He'd walk on water, run through fire, softly spoken, emotionally open, enigma, sublime. So with genetics sorted and character defined, a God exhausted, but it was 9:15. Proud of his creation and his Manchester man, he rested and suppered on bread and wine. When sleeping that night, because all gods have to dream, he remembered the creation of Adam and Eve, a serpent, an apple, original sin. So he took his plans for the Manchester man and he placed them in the bin. Catholic rearing, Sunday mass, hours are spent in my RE class, questioning the quandaries. The constant confusion has helped me arrive at this unique conclusion, that God is a man. Mary's from Gorton. Jesus and Joseph were both born in Moston. Judas Iscariot's from London, well, Luton. He came here to study when he was a student. The 12 apostles, the original Manchester scuttlers. St. Peter from Ancoats, St. Paul is from Crumpsall. Matthew, Mark, Luke and John carried the flag on the Whit walks. Mary of Magdalene worked on Clayton Vale. She lived in Lightbound, but then moved to Sale. The three wise men were from Wythenshawe, Benchill, Bagley, Woodhouse Park. The guys who flanked Jesus as he died on the cross were from Cowsby Street in the heart of the Moss. Golgotha was the hill at the top of Heaton Park, and the swollen Mersey is where Noah launched the ark. The Bible is truly a wonderful read, but not a book everyone chooses to believe. But when I read between the lines, I come to the theological conclusion that God, the creator of man, the heaven, the stars and the universe, he had to be a Mancunian. God is a Manc.